Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Farouk. Okay. All right. Good morning, colleagues. And good morning, our online audience. I hope that you can hear me. Okay, so I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to Mr. Martin Buhamizo's PhD defense. Martin, good morning.
Good morning, Dean.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
For making it up to this point. Okay, so Martin's study is on the bureaucracies of national identification and citizen certification in Uganda. And Martin is supervised by 3 super professors. Professor Godfrey, Berinde Asiimwe, who is with us in the room. Prof, please wave to us. Congratulations and thank you for supporting the candidate. Associate Professor Robert Esuruku, who is not able again to join us here because he's far. He's now in Muni University, but he promised to join online. I don't know if he's there or not yet, but he's aware, and Martin, you're sure that he wishes you the very best. And the 3rd supervisor was Professor Amanda Hammar from the University of Copenhagen, who is online. So there will be a moment for us to be able to ask Professor Amanda to say hi to us, but maybe later, not right now. Okay, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have Professor Archangel Rukoko with us. So I don't know if Professor you prefer Archangel or Biaruhanga Rukoko, but Rukoko is the constant. I'm just saying this because Professor Rukoko taught me, and I did not know what the A stood for. I always knew him as A.B. Rukoko. I did not know what the A stood for until recently. So that's why I like to mention it all the time, because it was a later discovery for me in life. And then we have Dr. Charlotte Karungi Mafumbo from the Department of History, Head of Department. Thank you, Dr. Charlotte. Dr. Martin Chamanywa from Development Studies. Dr. Christine Mbabazi-Mpyangu from the Department of Religion and Peace Studies. And Dr. Zaid Sekito from the Department of History. We also have Dr. Rest Naiga, Head of Department of Development Studies, but she will be joining us along the way because she had to start with another meeting. And then the most important person without whom this defense could not proceed, the independent reader, Professor Julius Chiza from the Department of Political Science, Makerere University. Professor, thank you again for accepting to take on this intellectual labor of reading these dissertations and being able to engage with the students. Okay, I would like to ask all of us to put our hands together for the person who makes sure this room is set and that the equipment is in order and everything is going okay. Please let's clap for our own Professor Farouk, without whom things can be very difficult in this place. Farouk, we thank you for just making sure that things flow. This is the 17th defense that we are having this year from the School of Liberal and Performing Arts. I will not speak for the others. And you've been there all through. You've been the constant in all these defenses. Okay, and our secretariat, our school registrar, Ms. Florence Birawa. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting the students. I was going to acknowledge the presence of our guest who has just stepped out. So I think I will do that when he comes back, or later when we have the interface. So for those who have been coming to this room regularly, certain things have become obvious by now. But again, I'm expected to say them. So Martin will have up to 40 minutes maximum to take us through his work. Martin, if you can use 30 minutes, that will be fine. You give us a bonus. And thereafter, the critical reader will have up to 60 minutes of engagement with the candidate. And then we will come to the panelists who have up to 30 minutes. And then we open up to the public where we have 10 minutes. And then the panelists will retreat and deliberate, and then we'll come back here to pronounce ourselves. Yes, so our guest is back, and I would now like to recognize the presence of Professor Nyakana, who has joined us today. Professor Nyakana worked in Makerere in different capacities, and I think the last, if I remember correctly, is that he was the director of the Makerere University Jinja campus. He's a geographer, and Martin, I know that you have perhaps a better relationship with Professor Nyakana, better than myself. There will be time for you to speak to that, but for now, I want to invite you to take us through your presentation, and I also want to request that maybe we put our phones in silent mode so that we don't disrupt Martin when he's taking us through his presentations. Martin, good luck. And
thank you.
Please.
Yeah. Thank you, the Dean. It is very early morning, but the bottle is almost empty. That means trying to refresh myself. But I'm glad. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Martin Buhamizo. My supervisors have been Professor Asiimwe Godfrey, Berinde, Associate Professor, Robert Senath Esuruku, Professor Amanda Hammar, based in Copenhagen. So today I'm here to present to you what I've been doing as my doctoral study, that is Bureaucracies of National Identification and Citizen Certification. So what motivated me to do this study is the introduction of national ID in Uganda. So the idea seemed to be very new to me. All along we had IDs, but this was very new. And I was motivated by three important aspects, that is bureaucracies, national identification, and citizen certification. By bureaucracy, I look at to deal with the state authority in line with the management of identity, identification cards. And by identification, I look at this involves the centralized government system for managing individuals' records. So then I come to citizen certification. What am I, how do I look at it? It includes classification processes related to manufacturing terms of recognition and technologies that govern lived citizenship. So particularly following the idea of implementation of national identity cards. So what's my roadmap? That's my roadmap, how I'm going to be presenting this study, this research. So right now I begin with the introduction, looking at the background. So Uganda's history of identification traces back to the time of religion when it came here in Africa. So the registrations were first done by the churches, then followed by the colonial civil registration, and later now to the modern times of biometric national ID programs. So Uganda established its comprehensive civil registration in 1904. So it was comprehensive, only that it's Karamoja that was left out, reason being of their nature of nomadism, because when it comes to identification or giving citizen registration of civil, it means you have to have a place where you are permanently settled. So it is sedentalized. So Uganda's national ID system is intertwined with development agendas globally. For example, when you ID for sustainable development goals, then there is another program for World Bank that is ID for development in 2014. But particularly when you look at Sustainable Development Goal 16.9, target, it looks at providing legal IDs for all, including birth registration. So that means our ID system is not isolated, but it is within the broader global system. So now the niche is in 2014, Uganda began mass registration exercise in 2014 to introduce what we have as national ID, and purposely for security, development planning, and at that time there was a need to prepare for the voters in electronic form. So that's how the national ID now comes in. So in 2015, we see the establishment now of NILA. So NILA itself is a government agency that is responsible for managing all the registration. As I speak of now, NILA, apart from issuing the national ID cards, it is now handling birth registration, death registration. In 2024, even marriage registration has been now taken to NIRA. So that means for all of us who have not yet wedded, you will need a national ID as well to qualify for a wedding. So what is the problem? What am I looking at? So Uganda, having launched the NIRA project to identify, register, and issue national IDs in 2014, in compliance with other global standards, that is Sustainable Development Goals, specifically for 16.9. So 16.9, that goal, in brief, it looks at peace, justice, and strong institutions. Strong institutions in the sense that these institutions have to be inclusive, include all people in terms of development. So however, since the introduction of national identification system in 2014, the bureaucracies surrounding ID registration, administrative procedures, documentation, and institutional requirements have led to the exclusion of some categories of citizens from accessing IDs. I'll be in the subsequent discussion, I'll bring out those different categories of citizens that have been limited in accessing IDs. So that's where I see the problem. So this study contains the theorizations, legal and administrative, of what constitutes Ugandan citizenship are limiting. So hence curtailing a participatory citizen-centered approach which this study seeks to propose. So I realize that there are challenges within our legal, the constitution, that is our supreme law, and administrative procedures within the bureaucracy that actually needs to be investigated, that leads me to participatory citizen-centered approach, which this study seeks to propose. Now, to have this puzzle solved, I came up with the objectives. The general objective looks at to examine the implication of the evolving national ID system for the bureaucracies of registration, identification, and certification for state-citizen interactions. So, to have that general objective expanded and explained very well, I came up with specific objectives. One, to analyze the evolution of citizenship identification in Uganda from 1962 to 2014. The second one is to examine the changes in bureaucracies and bureaucratic practices that emerged from the introduction of national identification and certification in Uganda in 2014. The last one, on the specific objectives, is to analyze the implications of the national identification system on the state-citizen interaction. Now, the research questions helping me to understand my field and how I will frame my questions and in terms of getting the answers for my problem is how has citizenship and systems that recognize and satisfy this evolution in Uganda from 1962 to 2014, how has that evolved? The second one, research question, is what new bureaucracies and bureaucratic practices have emerged from this introduction? Some bureaucracy, because before this registration, there used to be other different government agencies handling identification. So ecosystem was existing, but now this changes. What are the implications, the last research question, what are the implications of national identification system on the relationship or interaction between citizens and the state? So this work, looking at it closely, I came up with two related theories. So my theoretical framework, the first one I use Governmentality by Michel Foucault, that is 1978. The second one will be developmentality. But let me first explain this and its relevance in my research. So Michel Foucault looks at governmentality as the art of governing. What does that art involve? In this case, for example, having the national ID, being centralized, that itself is an art of how people can be managed. So this theory helps me to understand the kind of interaction and the power relations that exist. Because by looking at governmentality itself in other ways, it looks at, represents a complex form of influence in which rulers overtly dominate by modifying behaviors, mindsets, or mentalities. From here, I would give an example. For example, in Makerere here, I'm sorry for the Makerere fraternity of which I belong, they introduced the clock-in system, biometric. That itself is part of governmentality. That is one way of monitoring, panopticism. So by mindset, those are behaviors, different techniques that are applied by governmentality to manage the population. In governmentality, you look at this situation whereby as if the governors are intimidated by the population, so it has to be managed. So in doing that, they come up with different techniques, because in another way you can look at as an assemblage of techniques directly aimed at managing the population. In this view, governmentality is defined as a conduct of conduct. So how people have to be managed in the way they behave. So this brings in the power relations, which becomes the asymmetrical, whereby the governors or the leaders dominate the sphere in terms of all development undertakings. So governmentality, I look at it in three relevant aspects. That is biopower. Biopower relates to the knowledge and strategies of power to govern the population's life. So by power, by politics, all that relates to management of life. So, and I look at it in the frame of the current biometrics. So the current biometrics that we are using and other, recently they have started taking iris. So all this is management of our information, which is taken by the government. Then I come to other area of my emphasis, that is disciplinary power. Disciplinary power emphasizing the issue of the concept of panopticon. So here, I'm looking at it in the lens of, because all these technologies of power to manage citizens are aimed at making sure that certain behavior is produced, whereby you are compliant to what the state puts in place. So panopticism, this is, it was metaphorically used by Foucault at that time to explain the kind of an observation system whose principal objective is to survey or to monitor people from the center. And at that time he used the example of the prison cells in one place whereby people could be monitored without seeing the person watching them. Then governmentality comes up with another dimension which I want to emphasize in my work, that is pastoral power. Pastoral power, that is like the pastors, this idea stems from the church. The pastoral power, the state adopts a shepherd-like role. Now the state humanizes itself in providence, giving services and so on, but the idea is controlling and managing the population. The second theory I'm using is developmentality. John Howard Sunday, 2015. Developmentality here, the claim is an intentional means to govern at a distance. So this idea is helping me to understand that kind of the internal relationship, the internal interaction between state agencies and citizens. So this claim in Uganda, let me just give this example maybe to give more explanation about that. In Uganda we have, for example, poverty reduction strategy papers. Poverty strategy reduction papers, the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, they allow developing countries to write those papers. But actually in writing, you have to follow what they tell you. So there is some kind of power dominance in terms of managing. So developmentality broadens to encompass the state's role in providence, in development, emphasizing how care systems and state policies alter governance practices. So this is actually augurs well with my course, that is development studies. So in this, this in turn considers the inherent power in that kind of interaction or between the donor and the recipient. It leads to some kind of concealed power, because you have to, first of all, we need money for our own development, but you have to agree with what they have to tell you. But that is in form of they will provide, that is providence, and so on, as I will later explain. So relevance, developmentality has been used to examine the internal relationship or interaction between state agencies and citizens. In this case, NERA reveals an inherent asymmetry in power dynamics, whereas in line with state-imposed systems, frequently constrain state citizens' freedoms. But we need the IDs in order to access those services. So methodology. So this is a research design, an approach that is case study, qualitative. So a sample size of 50 informants. Techniques are used purposive. There are certain segments of the population whom I was asking that I wanted to talk about. For example, those who started NILA. Referral, these are some of the people that were actually necessary in my research. Then methods, document review, key informants, they go along. oral histories, participant observation, field notes, and archives. So area of studies, NIRA head office, and its decentralized divisions, Kawempe, Rubaga, and so on. So scope from 1962. So data analysis has been done thematically. Document analysis is one of the ways I analyzed my data. So ethical considerations and all that. Limitations, the question of time came up. That does not mean that I didn't finish my work, but time comes in terms of you cannot cover all that you maybe have covered in case because of time. Space, that means, for example, NILA has got different branches, so I could not be in all those branches at the same time. So capacity, that is in terms of power, like to influence what someone has to tell you. This was a little bit a bureaucratic, sensitive topic to handle. So research finds, the first one is the objective one, so the evolution of citizenship and identification in Uganda from 1962. So these are themes. So colonial legacy, I found that Ugandan citizenship is shaped by historical events that have influenced who we claim to be now. So what does this mean? The colonial tactics imposing their rule has actually created boundary challenges between natives and indigenous people. So another finding looks at the theme is legal context. The 1962 Constitution, that very year when we gained our independence, defined citizenship requirements, including those born in Uganda and those born outside, if their father was a citizen. So that's how they framed it. So the 1995 Constitution introduced citizenship by birth and registration, naturalization, linking birth to indigenous communities listed in third schedule. What does this mean? There are challenges in attempt to define who a citizen is universally. So another theme looks at the citizenship recognition in Uganda, the lens of IDs. I told you in the first that we had IDs, so that means that formed what we call citizenship identification infrastructure. So in this theme, I find that there was no statutory outline for identity documents issued to citizens. So what does this mean? It means there were multiple identification documents that were on board. And what's the problem with that? If these were used as to identify citizens, the problem is that different people came with different IDs, but this could not justify who they are in the eyes of government agencies that they encountered. So different government entities had their own IDs, fragmented forms. So the second objective looks at changes within the bureaucracy since 2014. So changes thematically look at the establishment of NIRA as a government agency that is in charge of managing IDs. So this is part of, NIRA was established as part of national security information systems in attempt to centralize identity management. So centralization of this, of national ID, gave the absolute power to the state to manage the whole process of identification, registration, and defining who a citizen is. So through documentation, certification, and others. So in 2015 still, Registration of Persons Act was established, so as I have already explained. So its major role is to identify, manage all those different identities that citizens in Uganda. So NIRA is structured countrywide up to LOC1. So I think the government used that because the reason in 2014 when there was mass registration, so there was no clear indicator, according to their field, that this is a true Ugandan. So that's what the bureaucrats used to tell. There was no clear indicator that this is a true Ugandan because it was mass registration. So by introducing NIRA, LOCs and ISO comes in now, ISO comes in because of that suspicion of who is true Ugandan. Because ISO does what we call background verification checks in case of suspicion. So objective 2 is continued integration of NILA that is expanded in 2014. So there was an argument in the public sphere and the international community at that time, but you are taking people's information. But how are you able to guard this information on the issues of privacy and protection? So the government came up with the Data Protection Privacy Authority Act in 2019. So the idea was to make sure that people willing, they are consulted to give information, and if the person's information is to be used, then they have to be consulted. Objective 3 looks at the implication of national identification system on citizen-state interaction. Key empirical findings there, at the moment, the ID defines our citizenship. So sole legal ID for citizenship. So the ID is an evidentiary proof of citizenship in Uganda. So this is evidenced by that act, that section 68(2) of the registration of act states, where any enactment requires a person to prove citizenship, producing the unique national identification number shall be prima facie evidence of citizenship. So the second finding looks at this has done a disservice or a service, depending on the eyes of the person, but it from the field, it is reinforcing social hierarchies. The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda recognizes 65 communities that are entitled to obtain these IDs. How about those that are not yet included? So the last finding there looks at normalization, formalization of identity and state surveillance. Ideally, the literature read and the information from the field point to that. How is this done? The systematic collection of biodata, this itself is saved within centralized system. So because this system is actually characterized by 3. 1, it is centralized. 2, digitalized. 3, it is embedded with biometrics. So formalization now means that we have to live by that, whereby the biometric data is taken alongside non-biometric. What do I mean by non-biometric? Such as the clan, ethnicity, and parental details are needed when, so all this is to make us more visible. This is important in this. When as registration is taking place, there are those people who have not been captured in the 65 communities, but they need IDs, because when you go back to my theory, I came up with developmentality. So the way the government now, the state humanizes itself in providence, in providing resources for the citizens. So there are issues that have come up which I call informal practices. Informal practices, this has come up. Some people are actually, according to the state law, that is the Constitution, if you are not in the 65 communities identified, that means you are not supposed to get a national ID. But yet it is tied to all the services provided by state and even private sector. So what are these informalities that exist whereas people are registering? So there is this idea called the vertical connections, social network or relations. Some people have taken advantage as an informal way, because the bureaucrats, ideally they are supposed to be following formal procedures prescribed by the state, following the Constitution, what it says. But there are these cases whereby connections have helped people get IDs. Then there is also use of brokers and intermediaries. This might not necessarily mean that these are people of the identified 65, but there is that kind of, some brokers take the, maybe the level of illiteracy within the community and they work as brokers, but that is also leading to compromising what would be formal way of registering citizens. Then there is coaching, training for the registration procedure for national ID. These have been observed in various spaces where I've been doing research. Now, this is a knowledge of my two theories, governmentality and developmentality in practice. So, national ID system exemplifies Foucauldian disciplinary power where individuals, because you need resources, you need services or you need resources from the government. So people now internalize official standards as a necessity for documentation in order to access rights and resources. In the lens of development, the national ID in Uganda is deeply integrated into development interventions, particularly in social protection subsidies. For example, those who are beneficiaries of social assistance grant for empowerment, normally received by people whom we call senior citizens in Uganda, 80 years and above, you must have a national ID. So that speaks well with the developmentality. So datification serves as an architecture for national development. So the ID system in Uganda integrates biometric data with national planning and e-government and other things that the government is providing to us as through having a national ID. What's my conclusion? My conclusion points to the identification system, such as national ID, biometric IDs, promise to establish a cohesive national ID system facilitating interoperable monitoring frameworks and enabling the systemization of individuals' visibility in all forms, in all formal spaces. So, as it is now and in future, this is from my conclusion from what I've been studying, that this is what the biometric ID is doing. So by reading even the works of Scott, 1998, so it explains that such government techniques are aimed to make people visible. Visible for what? Going back to governmentality, for control, managing, so that the government achieves its own objective without coercing people to comply. So still on conclusion, the national ID system indicates that developing nations might serve as an effective channel for global surveillance. For instance, currently the national ID NIN is connected to passport. And passport has got what to follow according to International Civil Aviation Organization, that is ICAO. So, but the fact that it is connected, you can really see that there is international surveillance ongoing. What do I recommend? Recommendations, an urgent need for policy reform for inclusive citizenship. Going back to my research question, my research problem, realize that such kind of theorization, legal and administrative procedures left out certain groups of people. So there's that need to have reform within our policies, our legal, the constitution, to have an inclusive citizenship. Because if their background was or is to make sure that the national ID includes all people within a country and others are left out, what does that mean? There is a possibility in the future, according to Gelbar, so 2013, the revolution of national ID says there is a likelihood of intergenerational discrimination or marginalization. Because if you are a parent, you have a national ID, you are supposed to, actually you already provide citizenship to your children. So The second recommendation looks at citizen engagement and awareness. That brings in the idea of what I propose, that is a citizen-centered participatory approach. Because you intend to develop people as a state, but then people are not involved. Suggested areas for further research, there is a need to investigate policy development and best practices, emphasizing the importance of coherent policy frameworks to guide the construction and management of national identification system. 2, an interdisciplinary analysis. Today, I think Professor Chuguri changed the name by referring to her word, said, my academic chat today comes from a different background, political science. So that kind of interdisciplinary analysis of Uganda's national ID and certification systems is essential to understanding the interplay between identity governance and other disciplines such as law, politics, history, and technology. What do I contribute? Having discussed that, I'm convinced that this can be a contribution to understanding the impact of identification systems on state power, citizen participation, highlighting how centralizing identification processes affect the power allocation within a country. The study also contributes theoretical understanding that identification systems are essential to state building efforts. So here, state building efforts, Fukuyama 2004 defines state building as creating new institutions and strengthening the existing ones. So this is, in other words, the introduction of NILA as a new institution created by the state is kind of strengthening the existing institutions, because identification has been there. People have been identified, but in different ways that were fragmented. So far as I wind up, I have one paper published that is National Identity Card and Citizen Inclusion in Uganda. So by that journal. The second one, I have received the comments and I'm working on them. That is the journal where I submitted it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for taking us through your work. Is the bottle still?
Yeah, I have got many, so I think I'll not die.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not putting yourself on some kind of drip in a way. But thank you very much for the presentation. I would now like to invite Professor Chiza from the Department of Political Science to help us understand the things of bureaucracies. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So, Prof.
Thank you very much, senior colleagues. Thank you. Who is the master of ceremony today? Not you. You are too important for that. Thank you very much, senior colleagues. Thank you. I think there are PhD students here, and we thank the candidate and the supervisors for the great work, investing in knowledge production. I am usually uncomfortable with this kind of title where you are asked to be an opponent. Just go and be opposition for the sake of opposition. And whereas Professor Nyakana is aware that this system was here when he was a fresher, it was here when he was an assistant lecturer, it was here when he was a full professor, he left it and it's still intact. He did not recommend that we change that title. And he's coming back to lament, you still have that title? Yes, we do. So could somebody take an action so that we are not called opponents? Really, we are growing our own wood, our own forest. We are helping junior monks to grow, and that's how I define my role, not as an opponent. Mr. Buhamizo, thank you for the work. You will allow me to raise a few issues in the format we may call Q&A.
Yep.
So I will ask a few questions and request you to respond. Not for me to give a lecture, I will not, because I'm not the lecturer here. You are. So we are going to begin with a few things. Maybe the preface. Somebody asked me, you typically don't put on jackets. Why have you put on a jacket today? I said the reason is twofold. First of all, the study is on bureaucrats and bureaucracies, and they are known for putting on jackets. I'm just surprised that the PhD candidate is not putting on a jacket.
It's a Friday.
It doesn't matter. When you're a bureaucrat, you're a bureaucrat. So I said I should put on a jacket because the study is about bureaucracy. But the second reason is I was told that when you put on a jacket, you project the power of the VC. So we are representing the VC here, projecting power. Now, allow me to raise the basic issue. I have repeatedly said this whenever I'm invited here. The Doctor of Philosophy degree is awarded or denied on the basis of the presence of philosophy in the work. Mr. Buhamizo has not guided us that philosophy derives from two Greek words, philo and sophia. Philo meaning love, and sophia meaning wisdom. So if you're sophia, it means you're wise. Now, philo, sophia, meaning love of wisdom. The question I wish to ask the candidate is this: have you fallen in love with wisdom?
Yes, I've done. That's why today I'm here presenting what I've been doing, so that there is no love that can be expressed beyond this. So I'm in love with studies.
Now I will ask like a catechist.
Yeah.
You are confessing you have fallen in love with wisdom. Where is the wisdom in this work? Where is the philosophy in your Doctor of Philosophy research?
So where is the philosophy? In my understanding, the kind of love of wisdom or that I bring on table is issues to deal with understanding different government techniques employed in managing its citizens without coercing them. So, and these techniques, one of them that we have that where my interest is the national ID system, whereby most people would not perhaps not understand how they are being controlled, how they are being monitored. That's where the philosophy now comes in. The logic behind certain government systems that come on board and what they intend to do to the population.
Yes, but are you satisfied that when a Musoga woman says, "Omwami chakoba, nzena chenkoba," that they mean they are not under coercion? In other words, has coercion got to be brutal? If a national system is designed in a manner that without an ID, you may not access the elections, you may not be nominated or have power to nominate, isn't that coercion?
Yeah, it is, but this time, you see, it is not as someone who directly makes it on you, but this is the system of which you internalize that perhaps if I had an ID, I would have voted. But the question is, the state does that without directly forcing people to vote or not to be nominated by having or not having an ID. But this is kind of the dominance that the state brings on board. There is coercion, but this, I would call it a modern way of coercing people without directly forcing them to act. But they internalize themselves that this is what I need to do in order to have this.
If you're a student in my department, the Department of Power, you'd be using concepts like soft power as opposed to hard power.
Okay.
Soft power is intelligent. hard power is raw and brutal. I thought those were the words you'd be bringing out to build on the philosophy.
Okay.
But we keep moving. Now, I want to comment on the introduction, your general introduction. In the introduction of a philosophical piece of work, we normally expect an outline of the scholarly debates. Why are these scholarly debates missing? And why is there no indication of the research gap that you may have set out to fulfill?
Yeah, I would say I agree, because the presentation for today was actually out of careful reflection of what I was missing in the book I submitted. So, but for today, I was giving some kind of refined thoughts that I put thereafter. But to make it a bit much more philosophical, I promise to make sure that they reflect.
Okay, you promise to do better. But what are the major scholarly debates? Now that you say you have improved your knowledge, you have improved upon what you submitted.
Yeah, so
what are the major scholarly debates on the subject you are interrogating?
The major scholarly debates on the subject I'm interrogating, one of them is Mahmoud Mamdan on issues of citizenship, citizens and subjects, talking about actually specific in Uganda, looking at how we came to be what we are in terms of citizenship, looking at the colonial legacy. That is one. In terms of issues to deal with national IDs, we have documenting citizens, that is Kaplan and Koppe. So they explain different ways of documenting citizens and how it impacts their state-citizen interaction. Then another scholarly is the issue of Scott. So Scott wrote, gave an example of the metaphor of a scientific forest. So explaining the kind of intentions why states do certain things, for what reasons. But in doing that, realize that there is some kind of exclusion. For example, using the scientific forest, you make it clean and well aligned, but you affect other living organisms that maybe would. So another scholarly debate is something to deal with states at work by Ben Schenk, who talks about state building in Africa, how the states build. So he uses a metaphor of states as a construction site, whereby that they keep on changing when new things come up and there are different actors involved in that kind of state formation. And another one is Fukuyama 2004, who looks at state building as well. So all of these, another one is something to deal with bureaucracies is, I was guided by the Max Weber, that is 1978. So they're trying to look at these bureaucracies, and this is where I got guidance. Then, and other things.
Okay. Do you, as a student of Doctor of Philosophy, a lover of wisdom, do you draw a distinction between literature narration and literature review? Because what you seem to be doing is narration, not a critical review. Because can you bring out scholarly debates without a critical review?
So, could I beg you to repeat so I can get to really what I would answer?
Okay, it will get better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, now can we come to the conceptualization? And I want to raise two sets of issues. First, you are deploying the concept of governmentality and developmentality. Are you satisfied that you understood these concepts?
Because at the moment,
it appears, for example, when the Colombian American anthropologist Arturo Escobar coins the concept of developmentality, it is to use it in a derogatory sense. But you are using it in a positive sense, as if it is good work. But developmentality was used to mean the normalization of the abnormal. The idea that you acquire practices saved from a dominant power and you assume it to be normal when actually it's abnormal. So this is actually in the tradition of critiquing modernity and modernization. But I don't hear that voice from you. You appear to be saying, oh, developmentality is a positive thing, and so is governmentality. Are you satisfied that you understood these concepts?
According to what, Prof, according to what I was writing, I would not say I'm satisfied since it is a learning process or not satisfied, but the idea here is that I critically look at governmentality in a lens that these techniques, these systems, national ID, is not for the purposes of benefiting as such, but the idea is that the state itself wants to monitor for its own benefit. For example, that's why I bring in the concept of panopticism, whereby it's an observatory system, whereby the state is using the national ID now to monitor the population across, within and across the border. So yes, that itself it infringes on privacy.
Mr. Buhamizo,
yes,
I want us to appreciate that probably you needed to read more literature, political science literature.
Political science.
The historical object of the state is to exert statecraft, stateness, and being able to govern, being able to register, being able to get records of citizens is a key element of statecraft. So why are you having a negative view? Would you rather live in Somalia or under police state? All successful states are police states. And I've seen some Ugandans, whenever they go to Europe or America, the first thing is you have to register. By the way, immigration data is relayed as you leave your country to the country where you're going.
Yeah.
Your data, your passport, etc. Where are you going to live? Which hotel? That is state intrusion in your privacy. But it's a measure of statecraft.
Yeah.
Would you rather live in a country which doesn't know where you are? In all the major cities I've gone, the first thing is to register. Town hall. If you are shifting from one city to the other, you register. But the object of the state doing all of this is security, is service delivery. The recent war, Israel attacking Iran, the Israeli state was able to communicate to citizens that Iran is going to attack with this kind of thing, go underground. So lives were saved. What would you prefer? To live in Somalia or actually to promote the strengthening of statecraft? But statecraft with human rights. So what would be the argument here? That we need less of the statecraft or more, provided it is human rights based?
I think I would prefer that statecraft is there, but more with human rights, because we need that kind of security that is provided by the state. But this is a situation whereby, for example, when it comes to panopticism, whereby you are controlled here and there, which sometimes intrudes in your privacy. So, however, it could be a measure for the state to put security measures, but in one way or the other, it is detrimental to someone of who's being surveilled, and that can affect their development.
Okay, so
thank you, Prof.
Could we reflect on this concept that you put in the research title, central element of your study? You're commenting on the issue called bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Could we please go where you tried to unpack bureaucracy in your slides? You said bureaucracy concerns the state's authority to manage national IDs. Now, my friend, you see that the second sentence. Bureaucracy concerns the state's authority to issue national IDs. Are you satisfied that this presentation of ideas is reflecting love of wisdom? That you have fallen in love? Or oyagala kubyejjako?
No, I'm not doing that, but bureaucracy, conceptualizing it like that, I was based on the national ID in Uganda, because I've read some other literature regarding the bureaucracy, but I wanted to contextualize it within my study. I'm in love
my friend.
with that, but the fact that we are here trying to see what would have been improved and what would have been strengthened. So the idea of being here is to get from the senior scholars so that we can make this work better.
Yes, I want to guide that in scholarship. You don't go micro before you review kindly. This would embarrass us as a university, because you need to conceptualize bureaucracy, and bureaucracy has a history, it has a philosophy, it has a justification. Bureaucracy emerged as a reform movement against the spoils system. Spoils system meant to the winner belongs everything. If you win an election, for example, in agrarian USA, if you won an election in UK, you win the election, you win all offices, your party takes everything, everything. And those that have lost completely. So the idea was that whether you're giving bureaucratic, technocratic jobs, you give them to those of your party. So bureaucracy emerges as a positive reform movement to be able to say that to occupy a technocratic office, you don't have to have the same political affiliation as the winning party. Now, without this kind of knowledge, we seem to get lost. And neither have I seen the historicization of bureaucracy. The earliest bureaucracies were developed in Egypt, the ancient Egypt, 2,500 years, 3,000 years before the current era. And what was the idea? Registration, recording, produce, being able to monitor who is doing what. This information is missing in the work I read.
Prof, I tried to do that in my literature review. However, the kind of historicization you are talking about needs to be given due attention so that I'm able to make it strong enough.
Okay, thanks. Now, again, building on the foundation, because conceptual foundations guide us in empirical data collection, isn't it? Now, bureaucracy is a term which refers to following rules and regulations, Pharisaic rules and regulations, like Pharisees of the Bible. Number two, having procedures. Yes. Number three, the idea of record keeping. And in a bureaucracy, you use the primitive file, like the primitive files about each one of us, which were burnt in the main building. Those traditional files, they used to be yellow or dark yellow, gray, something out of that. They were burnt, thank God. Now, I can document other elements of bureaucracy. And of course, bureaucracy is about impartiality. The idea that you offer service without fear or favor, whether somebody agreed with you during the electoral process or not. Now, as I document the elements of bureaucracy, it appears to me that there is a significant disconnect between bureaucracy and what is happening in the National Identification and Citizen Certification Authority. So what NIRA is doing is actually e-governance, digitally driven. The idea is that we want coordinated governance. The idea is that once we get your biometric data, we are able to coordinate it with other government agencies, including intelligence, including the Passport Control Office, including URA, the Uganda Revenue Authority, including local governments. In other words, what we are seeing in NIRA, which is your research area, is actually not bureaucracy. We are seeing a reform of bureaucracy to introduce a system we call e-governance, a system we call SMART. The question becomes, does your title stand scrutiny? Can your title survive critical scrutiny?
Yes, it can survive scrutiny, Prof. Reason being, I'm talking of the bureaucracies that have been since the introduction of national ID. And these bureaucracies, according to my conceptualization, I look at what has happened with since the establishment of NIRA. In 2014, NIRA wasn't established yet, but it was in National It is a national security information system that started the project. That was linked to the army. So, but when when they established NIRA, now under NIRA there are different agencies that actually I conceptualize as bureaucracies that are involved in documenting citizens. So that's why my title stands, scrutiny.
So what is bureaucratic about those agencies?
So what is bureaucratic about these agencies is that in registration, people have to go from one stage to another. And that is being, those stages, at all those stages, there is documentation or signatures on those different forms that these people come with while applying for. So that's how I conceptualized it. For example, in Uganda, the registration starts from LOC1, local, from the local chairpersons. So from there, if they don't use the parish, that is a parish, then DISO, District Internal Security Officer, or Parish Internal Security Officer. So those are, that now ISO now comes in as a bureaucratic government agency that is also involved in the registration. So they have reasons for that, because when NIRA, when mass registration started, there was, as I said, in the field when I was interacting with the bureaucrats, there was a saying that they were saying that there was no way we could establish a real Ugandan at that time. So that's why they had to involve all these other government agencies forming the bureaucratization of registration for national ID. That's how I conceptualize it.
Yes, but when you say bureaucratization of a long process covering 46 million Ugandans, are you aware that to run government is to run a large organization? And that to run a large organization, you may import technology, you may go digital, but there has to be some procedure. What's the reason? Predictability. So people know. So are you satisfied that when you're critical of that thing you're calling bureaucratic, that you are unrealistic to the reality of running government, the reality of running a large organization like Makerere? There has to be certain rules. Yes or no?
Yes, there have to be.
Because what's the alternative? The libertarian argument will say, leave us to do whatever we want. But is that what we'd like to see? More borders, more chaos on the roads?
Yeah, but in an academic discourse, we have to understand what this did, how this impacts the citizens while registering. Because, for example, much as the bureaucrats, they are implementers, largely they are called implementers, but they have got what we call discretionary powers. For example, when you bring your documents for certification and all that, it's up to the bureaucrat either to verify it clearly or so based on his or her own way of interpreting at that moment. For example, the national ID based on 65, that the 65 communities in Uganda, ethnic communities, are the ones entitled to get national IDs. So, but there is a challenge in trying to verify who falls in this and who does not fall. So that kind of discretionary power exercised by the bureaucrats itself, though it is supposed to follow certain rules prescribed by the state as formal, so it creates another challenge when it comes to citizenship verification.
Yes, but what's the alternative? Because I want us to be scholarly but also realistic.
Yeah.
Are you an academic?
I hope so, but
do you teach?
Yeah.
Do you design a course outline?
No, the ones I've been using, I found them designed, but I do improve them.
Are you aware that you have discretionary power to reform that teaching course outline?
I've done that.
Do you mark?
Yeah.
Do you have discretionary power to decide who gets what grade?
But following the format of marking according to the policy.
The bureaucrats follow the rules. Yeah. So the idea that you are critical of discretionary power must be married with a critical appreciation that Government makes broad guidelines, but leaves the implementer with certain spaces to interpret and execute. The way Makerere gives you power to read and grade. Yes or no? Yes, so could we marry critical thinking with appreciation of the reality? Now, kindly, now, could we turn to the problem statement? As a reader, a critical reader, it appears to me that your problem statement has no problem. Would you agree with me? Your problem statement has no research problem. Would you agree with me?
I wouldn't agree with you at the moment until we discuss and reach somewhere.
Okay, now you tell me, where is the problem, the research problem?
The problem, for example, when I'm using this framing, so the problem lies within the legal and administrative procedures. For example, let's look at what the intention behind national IDs. So the intention was to have all citizens included, purposely for example, for security, planning, and others. But this is a situation whereby the legal itself, the constitution, has a problem. Some of these communities have not been involved.
Which communities? Please, in scholarship you have to be specific.
Yeah, so the communities...
You're saying certain citizens were excluded. Which ones? Which communities?
The communities now, so maybe allow me for some time and I invite you to the page where you can...
Sure, because you leave points hanging, sir. Tomorrow we are sending you our own children to supervise.
Yeah.
But you don't leave points hanging. Which communities are excluded? And why haven't you made it a point? Are you aware that you can contribute to constitutional reform? Yes or no? Yes, because if you saw there is a community, citizen agency provides that you and I should make a contribution in changing the anomaly.
So sometimes, and I get these communities.
Okay. Perhaps you just note. If I were you, I would.
I would not, but I have some communities. One of them is, for example, the Benet in Kweni district. We have, the Malagoli in Chiliandongo. So those are some of the communities that have been excluded from national ID. So we have the higher people. So far there are 9 communities that have been identified, not yet included. We have the higher people in Lakai. So I would have given you full detail, but
have you interrogated whether these communities you deem to be excluded are part of a larger community, or whether they are actually migrants? We were doing research in West Nile, Bidi camp. Refugees come into Uganda under our open door policy, and in 2-3 days they are out of the refugee camp and they are in Kampala. They are in Gulu. They are looking for jobs. I recently met people from Burundi doing this Mutembe work in, of all places, in, what is this place? This place after Jessa Farm on Hoima Road. In Burundi. And I tried to speak Runyankole, of course gambling. He doesn't understand. I tried Uganda, he doesn't. I said, can I talk Swahili? Said, I don't understand. I said, which language? Say, I'm from Burundi. Doing Mutembe work. So and in Hoima, I met somebody who sold me a piece of artifact, but he said, this is from Congo. And these people are coming. So as we critique some of these groups, we need to be aware that some are migrants who have lived here for a while, but others are part of a larger group. Perhaps, you know, the Baruli. The Baruli say we are not Baganda.
Yeah.
We are Banyoro, but they are in Buganda. So in other words, let's appreciate that some of these groups are not necessarily issues that should be used to critique the system of identification. But I wanted to move now. I wanted to move to the objective. Your main objective, sir. Are we aware? So you say your general objective is to examine the implications of Uganda's evolving ID system. Yes or no?
Yes.
Are you satisfied that in doctoral work we research implications as your main objective? Or do we draw implications at the end of the work? am listening, sir.
Thank you, Prof. The genesis behind that objective was because when NIRA was established, so when I did preliminary studies, I realized that there have been changes, and the establishment of NIRA had implications on the development when it comes to development of ID system to the citizens. So now I crafted that to capture that the evolution that has come as a result of establishment of or the introduction of national ID system has got implications. So yes, that's the basis of that.
Yes, now I'm guiding as an elder, as
yes,
a senior monk.
You're welcome.
We do not research implications. We just draw implications. So even if NIRA was established and this establishment has implications, by the way, what we do or refuse to do will have implications, but we do not research implications. In scholarly work, we draw the implications from what you have analyzed, what you have documented, what you have examined, what you have critiqued, what you have scrutinized. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the specific objectives. I am okay with the first objective, which is trying to historicize the evolution, 1962 to 2014. However, I find difficulty accepting the second objective, which is talking about the new bureaucracies and bureaucratic practice to examine changes in bureaucracies. Seriously, when we leave this place, kindly read again about NIRA. Because the NIRA, in the course I teach in public sector management, the reforms introduced in NIRA are falling in the category of e-governance, smart governance, digitization, biometric systems. These are not the conventional bureaucracies. They are actually critical of the bureaucratic way of doing things. If you follow Max Weber and Woodrow Wilson and other classics who contributed to bureaucracies. So if I were you, I would actually reform the second objective. And of course, the third one, to the extent that you continue to talk about bureaucracies, might have also to be rethought, in my considered opinion.
Thank you, Prof.
Is it okay if I move to the next issue now, methodology? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, kindly go to the sample size. Did you see the conceptualization of governmentality? Up, the previous slide. That developmentality is an intentional means to govern at a distance. And the previous one, please. The previous slide. That governmentality, Michael Foucault, by the way, Michael Foucault is one of the confused philosophers I have found. I am not aware of any philosopher who grafts their work on Michel Foucault and does not end up confused. I'm not aware. Because Michel Foucault was himself confused. Yes, he was critical of the mainstream. But the ideas in this gentleman, not quite. And what we need to appreciate in scholarship, when he coins the term governmentality, that is 1978. Now you're quoting a source of 2007. Are you aware that certain scholars' ideas change with time? Could we get the original understanding and then compare, then determine which interpretation of governmentality is guiding your research? Okay? Yes, but now I had said we go to...
I have that.
I had suggested we go to methodology, please.
Yeah, I would do that, Prof.
Now, methodology, and of course I can make many comments. I like the philosophy you presented in the methodology. But when it comes to sample size selection, you see, the reliability of academic work, the science, is actually grafted on the methodology. If the methodology has serious problems, then the science becomes questionable. Now, you said you chose a sample size of 50 informants. Did you suggest 50 key informants?
So 50 or all the people whom I interviewed were 50?
Yes. Now, so the scientific question is, where is the science underpinning the selection of 50? Not 49, not 51, not 102, not 200. Where is the science? Why should we therefore trust your findings?
The reason, Prof, is in qualitative research, while you are in the field, carrying out the same study, that you reach a point whereby you keep on getting the same information. So circulation, you reach a point of circulation whereby the information is the same. So when I reached at that point, I actually at first I had proposed 80, but when I reached that point of 50, I realized this is enough to ground me in what I'm studying. So that's why I came with that sample size of 50.
So the idea is saturation. You reach saturation point.
Yeah, whereby people are giving the same information.
But are you aware? I brush shoulders with statisticians and economists.
Yeah.
Are you aware exact figures are suspicious? But I had to reach exactly this. In statistics, that is suspected.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
and please, I read your work. It would be very important for you to clarify that my sample size was guided by the qualitative principle of reaching a point of saturation, so that somebody doesn't think that you just guessed or decided.
yeah.
Okay. Now, could we briefly comment on the findings? Because you said you used qualitative research methods, isn't it?
Yes.
The findings. Are we aware that data in qualitative research is mainly presented in terms of deep quotes, direct quotes?
Yeah.
Why are they missing in the work I saw? I mean, there are just a few scattered. And I would have expected, as a senior monk, that every major issue you're raising, you present us. And we need to avoid the dangers of a single story. If there are no contradictions in the things we are reporting, again, the findings become suspicious. It is just not possible that all the people you interviewed are saying the same thing or are agreeing. Mwami Chakoba nzena chenkoba. Signifying that there is a subtle power, or there is a tendency for people to hide, or that as researchers we didn't do sufficient probing. So why are these qualitative forms of data largely missing in the work?
Prof, I don't agree with you on that, because what appears there is what I wanted to emphasize in terms of what I was writing. So maybe there could be some other additions that I would need to add there, but what is there right now is what I wanted to emphasize, and then I had to bring it in. So, but they are not largely missing. They are there.
Okay, could we go to the conclusions, please?
Thank you.
What's the main conclusion from your work? So what's your main conclusion, now off the head?
My main conclusion is that the national ID system, actually, as it stands now, or as it will be in future, is actually making us visible in all formal spaces, and facilitating that kind of interaction between state and citizen. Then another one looks at looking at the events. I look at this as one way of facilitating global surveillance, because there is interconnectedness. That's why I bring in the word interoperable. That's it, bro.
So are you using the word individual's visibility in a positive sense or in a sense of vulnerability?
Two ways. When you are visible, of course you are vulnerable to the snares of the state. So, two, when you are visible in terms of access to government resources provided by the state. For example, the example I've given about SAGE, social assistance grant for empowerment, then you are good to go. So it does two things. Being visible, it puts you at a precarious position of being identified, and maybe if there is something wrong that they want, something that you have committed, maybe that is not within the state's law, then they can arrest you. So
But
it
again,
has to.
But again, could we think through the
Yeah.
alternatives? What alternatives are you insinuating? Should we remain invisible so the state doesn't know where we live, the housing we enjoy or suffer, the kinds of roads, the jams, the congestion in our classrooms? Would you prefer a situation where the state doesn't know the need for service delivery? Would you like a situation where the state doesn't know there is jam, there is border, that Kampala has fallen to borders? Would you like a situation where the state doesn't know that we have 67% unemployment of our graduates? So as we critique from the scholarly perspective, can we think beyond and say, somebody grabbing this study, say Makerere has produced a doctorate in an area that affects us as government. What are they taking from this? What alternative would you prefer? Should we go back to the Garden of Eden, where each one is by themselves, perhaps in a forest somewhere? Or should we say this step should continue, but we assert citizen agency to ensure that e-governance and digitization do not feed into an authoritarian state elite structure? So, in my opinion, these things should come out clearly. Because to present the idea that what is happening is having negative connotations is actually to mislead the thinkers in government. And as a student of politics and students of power, I think we could present this in a...
I get your idea, Prof. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't want to comment on the recommendations. Urgent need for policy reform for inclusive citizenship. Now, if you said 65 communities are included and only 9, what do you mean by inclusion?
Inclusion.
9.
Yeah. And
the 9, we haven't questioned the ethnicity, the origin, the citizenship, isn't it? And then you're saying reform, and this is your main recommendation. Are you satisfied that people who have no hair on the head like me, or who have tresses or flowers, are going to take this seriously?
Yeah, they take it seriously because this is based on the findings. I would not actually recommend without looking through my findings. So I realize from what I've said that a range of people, those I've mentioned, are not yet on board, included. So because by inclusion, you are trying to improve the terms of individuals take part in society. And this goes even to attaining human development and all that. So then how would these people achieve development without being included? So that's why I came up with the recommendation that there is a need to have the policy on inclusion in a sense that we have to look at the Constitution if it is creating this problem, or otherwise, the research that will come later after this.
I was taught English at the time teachers were still very serious.
They are still serious.
If we talked about 65 groups included, 65 plus the 9 were excluded gives us what? 74. If you computed 65 out of 74, would you say there is no inclusivity? For me, that is the statistical question.
Okay.
Would you say there is no inclusivity if the state has provided for 65 out of 74, which is over 90%?
Yeah, but Prof, maybe, I don't know whether, let me use the biblical approach now. One sheep that was missing on the 99 they had to go and look for it. So this is the question of inclusion, looks at the whole group of the people being on board to improve their terms of participation in society. But 9 are missing. So what does it mean to the day-to-day experience in terms of access to services and other things that require one to have a national ID?
Okay, so in other words, you are looking for a perfect situation, an ideal situation. If I were you, I would invoke I would appreciate, first of all, the level of inclusivity, if that
Yeah.
has happened, and then say we need to make efforts for these groups,
Okay.
rather than carrying the idea of inclusive citizenship when the majority are covered by the ID system. And if I were you, I would also make a comment on the notion of limited governance. There is no country anywhere in the world which has a perfect government. All countries, all states are characterized by limited governance. That's why you see criminality in parts of the US with the most powerful army in the world, with an IT system. They still have criminals. Some of them are cyber criminals. That's why Israel is vulnerable to attacks, even when they thought they have an indomitable defense system. Iran proved that actually they are vulnerable. That's why every country has those spaces of limited governance. So having appreciated that, then in my opinion, I would modify the presentation of some of these views.
Yeah.
Efforts are being made. But these efforts, I think the issue would be, is there a disconnect between the good intentions of NERA and the practice? For me, that would be a serious research question. But that doesn't seem to come out. What seems to come out is governmentality
It will
and
come out.
developmentality.
It will come
Okay.
out.
Now, Madam Chairperson, have I done a sufficiently good job in being opponent for the sake of opponent, or growing our own talent as Makerere University? I want to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Kiza. I think let's give him another round of applause. And I must say that you haven't been an opponent for the sake of being an opponent. You've been a true critical reader that is putting all effort to make sure that when we grow our own timber, it is good timber that is deserving the standard of what we set at Makerere University. Thank you very much, Martin. How is it?
It is hot.
It's hot. Should I ask someone to bring another bottle?
I have more than
You said they
necessary.
have stocked. Okay. Okay. Well, thank God that you're almost on drip, but you don't want to step out for a minute. Some of my colleagues in my age bracket will tell you after 2 bottles they would ask to step out. Okay. So I would now like to come to the panelists, and I will invite Professor Rukoko to go first. Professor Rukoko, I know you're not feeling very well, but thank you very much for, again, coming to ensure that we grow our timber and we grow it well. Please join me to welcome our elder, Professor Rukoko. Can I hold the mic for you?
Yeah, thank you, Dean. And Martin, yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a war.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power or the struggle that you, or the energy you have to put in. And you put in enough, but you need to put in more.
Sure.
Yes, I have read your dissertation, and a number of things that I wanted to raise have been raised by he's called an independent reader, but traditionally we know them as advocatus diaboli. That means...
That's Latin.
Yeah, we shall not go into that. It's not a nice one, because he's the devil's advocate. That's what it means. But he's not a devil. He's trying to he's trying to make us become better. Now, I had identified 5 issues I wanted to engage with you, but since some of them were directly, because one was with the statement of the problem, and I thought it was mixed up, and you add on, for example, when you see the things you mention, after you have stated the implication, then you go into things which have nothing to do with the problem. Why didn't you shift them elsewhere? So these cover up the problem. I think this is a comment.
Okay.
Then number 2 is methods of collection of data. I come from the background of philosophy. And philosophy is best defined by one man called Bertrand Russell. You see, as a science, we don't believe anything unless we know the grounds for believing it. And secondly, we have to be sure that the methods you used are credible. So we have to go back to methods all the time. That is why it is emphasized.
Okay.
You know, it is also, these studies are hinged on philosophical principles. Now, the first point is what the Advocatus Diabol mentioned. You say you investigate, you interviewed 50 respondents. Not so.
Yes.
Where are the views of these people? It's not there. Where are they? And especially that you mention in one of your declarations that you are looking out for experiences, perceptions, and interpretations. And if you cannot get them verbatim, how did you capture these experiences? This is something that you need to look at again. But secondly, with quantitative methods, if you are, for example, you are going to use key informant interviews, do you go as far as 50? Do you know how much data you would collect with 50 respondents, depending on your interview guide? Do you know how much? You know, most of us researchers or students want to increase the number as if you are in a quantitative study. You want to impress us, but generally, the standard is not more than 15. If you are dealing with key informant interviews, you can raise them up to 18, that is understandable. But 50, just imagine you could write a book on each interviewee key informant, because it gives you a lot of information. And you're not asking him one question. It is an interaction. It is an extended interaction. And you find that 50, and I think you need to review this. Then still on the method, you see, I think on page 60, you say, let me refer, page 60, are you there? You say, are you there? Page 60.
Yes.
You are talking about on 3.8 data collection methods and tools. You start with the interview structure. And then in the text you are talking about key informants. Were these key informant interviews? What are you talking about? And yet when you on page 61, you are talking about in-depth interviews. So, did you intend to include key informant interviews or not? And if you included them, where are they? You are using also the interview guide. My dear Martin, my friend.
Yes, Prof.
I think there is something that needs to be rectified here. Please address that.
I will.
Okay. Now, lastly, let me not take a lot of time. Why didn't you include the section on scopes? How did you scope your work? You see, why do you lack that important aspect? Are you in political science still? Are you in development studies? Are you in philosophy? What time? You see, that is important for us to locate you, because we need also to follow your specialization. So as it is, I wouldn't be able to locate you, and I would invite you to look at that. For the time being, I will stop there because other people also need to. But thank you very much for your work, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Prof. I've taken note of all the suggestions, and I hope to work on them to make sure that this methodology part comes out very well, and other suggestions. Thank you.
Yes, you can see the wisdom flowing. Thank you very much, Professor Koko. And I would now like to invite your neighbor. So I'll go like this until you get to the end. So, Dr. Mafumbo, you're most welcome to engage Martin.
Thank you very, very much, Dean, and congratulations, Martin, for coming this far. I think this is a topic of very, very critical importance to this country, and I think the critical reader mentioned, and that's where I want us to add a few issues. First, I must appreciate the fact that you use Foucault and governmentality, and I know that the critical reader has given us another perspective to that, which we shall engage.
Yeah.
But for now, I think that the way you used it was very good and appropriate, and particularly how it resonates with the covers of the biopower. The e-governance is talking about the idea of digitizing, having people, having to know your population at the time that you want to maybe roll out a development project. It's very pertinent that Foucault becomes very relevant here in terms of management of large groups, protection of the nationalities, the different groups, not only the 65, but you're advocating that the 9 also have to be added. I wanted to know from you, what are the limitations of this theory? Because the way you paint it, it's a very good, and we don't doubt that. But I think I miss the limitations of this theory. And I want you to turn to page 111. 111, the last paragraph. I think that's where real governmentality is demonstrated. You write that the role of the ISO, the Internal Security Organization, entails surveillance and security logics. The ISO's, Uganda's Internal Intelligence Organization, is involved in vetting and verifying applicants for a national identity card and is particularly vigilant in areas designated as sensitive, such as border communities and districts susceptible to refugees. The securitization of identity categories some individuals as potential dangers, therefore exerting disciplinary power through bureaucratic surveillance. And you give an example of Kisoro and Yumbe. And I'm wondering, the limitation is that within the process, I think governmentality has some laxity. I don't know whether it's laxity or it is subject to infiltration. Okay? Because if they are doing a good job and they are recording everyone, how are these attacks happening? And I'm surprised that you use Kisoro and Yumbe. Why didn't you use Kasese? Huh? Because there is an era stage there. There is a lot of security. The ISO are always flowing. But somehow, I think the activities that happen in that region beg us to think that people come into Kasese, settle there, master plan, and then carry out these terrorist attacks, means that there is something wrong with the whole process of recording. The other issue that I thought we needed to think about, I like your figure on page 113, just shortly after that. You provide his concept and you indicate again, the biopower, which really was very attractive to me. But then, when it comes to the whole implementation of this theory within your work, I find that we need to rethink, because the way it is rolled out is through what we call the application process, which you definitely and very well do. On page 120, you show us that bureaucrats often use terms like true, real, genuine, proper, right? But
Yeah.
if you turn to page 262, where the actual form is, I don't see these categories on the form, the application form for the NERA, to be able to get an identity card.
Yeah.
You argue that these terms are employed. So I wanted to know what happens. Does someone just imagine and ask for them, or where are they in the form?
Yeah, in the form, thank you, Dr. Charlotte. In the form, they don't appear there. But while interacting with the bureaucrats, especially the district internal security officers, that term came out. And it became interesting for me to see their role, because by using that term, it's like the citizenship gatekeeping. So the citizenship gatekeeping now, that is itself, it leads us to discriminating, exclusion, whereby using the term real, that means they have to go and do the vetting, background verification checks. So that's how this term became interesting for me, and I had to use it. Because even it started in 2014 when NERA, when they started mass registration, the claim was that they did not actually clearly know this is a true all, because the idea is that the whole issue of national ID has a broad and future implication in terms of Ugandanization of the economy.
Okay.
So people who are Ugandans supposed to be employed within the Uganda, not others.
I think that's where history would have helped us. If you had given us a bit of the history of Uganda's formation and how the borders were drawn, you find that in some countries, one ethnic group is in one country,
Yeah.
and another group is on the other side.
Yeah.
So to what extent are they exploiting that fluidity to get identification in Uganda? I think for me that was the missing link, because even when you talk about people like the Bennett and how they are not included, I'm not so sure. I've been to Kapchora and I've met the Bennett. The only exclusion they have, and the arguments they often raise, is the fact that they keep they get displaced because of the environment. But even when they try to get them spaces where to stay, they go back to the mountains.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that becomes a government policy to exclude them, or, I mean, we need to interrogate all these groups vis-a-vis the historical, what you're calling Ugandanization. Because if there's any country where you can find anyone with an identity card, it is Uganda. But, and I think we raised this in some of the reports we share with you, is that sometimes people think when you're Congolese, you can have a Ugandan card. No, you can't. As a refugee, you will have an identity card. That may look like a Ugandan identity card, but there will be a very clear distinction that you are from another country. And I think that is something that I would have loved to see in this work. But otherwise, I think many of the comments I could see have been addressed, and I was very happy. I just want us to strengthen the argumentation around governmentality, and I think the critical reader raises the role of the state. The state has also the monopoly of violence, and they have the monopoly to decide who becomes a citizen or not. So is there a way they are excluding some people intentionally, especially if, for example, an ISO doesn't like you, he can just say, I can say you're not Ugandan. So I think there are these small things that matter, and I thought that we needed to pick them up as we go along. But otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, my boss, my head of department. I would now like to invite Dr. Martin Chamanywa.
Thank you, Chair. Martin, congratulations.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah. I have a few remarks, concerns. One, when you go to your research methodology chapter, on the methods of data collection, you told us that you used participant observation.
Yeah.
Okay? But when you look at what you described as participant observation, to me it looks like non-participant. Because when you talk about participant observation, you must be immersed, you must be involved in the processes. And yet for me it seems you were observing from a distance. So that is something which you need to look at. The other point, you talked about field notes as a method of collecting data. So I'm wondering, what kind of notes were you taking which were different from the observations?
Okay.
That is something for you to reflect on. And the other point is on the recommendations. I still wonder, is it sufficient to generate only 2 recommendations from an entire PhD study? And finally, you know, the main purpose of a PhD and the defining requirement is to make an original and significant contribution to a specific discipline. So I would like to know, because this is a PhD in development studies, what is the significant contribution that you have made to the discipline of development studies? And relatedly, where do you situate your work in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals?
Thank you, Martin. Where do I begin with the last one? Where do I squirt my work within Sustainable Development Goals? I have mentioned it could be having many that it cuts across, but because I was dealing with an identification document, so I basically looked at Sustainable Development Goal 16, because it talks about an element that I was dealing with, that is legal identity document and birth registration, including
Is that reflected in your work, the
Yes.
SDG?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you mentioned SDG 16.9. There is no such a thing as SDG 16.9. So when you are
In the introduction, it is there, Prof. Yeah. Yeah. Legal identity, people to be legally identified, and then maybe where I did not.
No, there are performance indicators.
Yeah.
So when you say 16.9, it's about the indicator to measure SDG 16.
Oh,
So don't state it as if it is an SDG.
I get it. So it was not stated. It was not stated. So that's actually when I was presenting, I said it looks at peace, justice, then strong institutions, and I went ahead to explain strong institutions in the lens of inclusivity. Yeah. So so when it comes to contribution, for example, contribution number 2 to the theoretical understanding that identification systems are essential to state building. To me, that is an original contribution for Uganda's case, because initially we had not had centralized system of managing citizens' identity data, but now it is in place. So for those who will carry on from here, I'm sure they will point to that, because I said state building, according to Fukuyama, 2004, It says it is creation of new institutions and strengthening the existing ones. So that's where actually I see that that is an original contribution. I'm convinced.
That a general contribution or a contribution to the discipline of development studies?
Yeah, it's a general contribution, a general contribution for this case, because development actually would not even take place without state well built. Yeah, so it encompasses all of those development ideas and so on. So because development takes place within a state. Yeah, that's what I can submit. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Chamanywa. May I now invite Dr. Zaid Sekito.
Thank you, Chair. Martin?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
Yeah, we are almost there.
You're almost there.
Yeah.
So this is my national ID expired last year and I did not renew. I haven't renewed. So it's now over a year, even when the government gave a grace period of 1 year.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you are going to have a conversation with an expired citizen or non-compliant. This is a very interesting piece. The conversation around citizenship and bureaucracies is that interesting. However, I have some questions to raise, which you may or you may not respond to right now. And all the previous panelists, including the opponent, all the independent reader, talked about your scope. Your scope in your presentation, you said is 1962 to 2014. 2014, is it?
Yeah.
But when you look at your problem statement, we can go there maybe. Your problem statement focuses more on the period after 2014.
Yeah.
Focuses more, and so is what you present in your work. And the question then is, what are you telling us about 2014 and the after period, which is not reflected in your scope? Your time scope, because you said 1962 to 2014, but we are discussing the period more after 2014. Is your study on bureaucracies and national identification 1962 to 2014, or the focus is on 2014 thereafter? That's number one. Number two, when you look at your scope, I get to wonder, you're talking about implications, and if you are to draw implications from a policy, then we need to look at the policy duration as a basis for evaluation. And in this case, for the idea or the issue of national identification from based on NIRA, the national IDs had a grace period expiry period of 10 years, isn't it? Wouldn't then be ideal for you to think of the period up to 2024 to give you a period within which to evaluate the program or the policy and be able to draw implications from that, rather than stopping at 2014 when a policy is being, the e-governance policy is being rolled out. Three is that why is your work so silent on the program called MIDAS? Yet you're talking about issues to do with data processing, data analysis, etc. etc. MIDAS was Migration Information and Data Analysis System. It's a border management system that was developed by the International Organization for Migration, and it is integrated into the Directorates of Citizenship and Migration as a key program to help in regulating or managing data for immigrants. But your work is totally silent on this. Then how can we be able to draw on your work, which is very pertinent because it can help us to understand issues to do with migration patterns. After all, today you cannot access a passport without a NIN. How can they then also help us to understand issues to do with security? How then can they help us to understand issues to do with how can your study help to inform policy in the event that such a key program or policy within the broader policy is left out? And I'm talking about that so-called MIDAS program. Then another thing is the issue of biases. This issue of citizenship and identification is very sensitive. That as you are talking to me, you don't know whether I'm a Mnyarwanda or you don't know whether I'm a Murundi or whatever. So then you, and now, I then, how did you address this in your data correction? Bearing in mind that, bearing in mind the sensitive nature of citizenship and identification in your country. In your country. Why, even right from the top, there are these rumors and debates that so and so is not Ugandan. So how did you navigate? And what was the feel like? The first time I visited these offices, the faces, by, for those who follow the physical appearances to describe Ugandanese, were actually saying, would actually say, these are not Ugandans registering Ugandans for national IDs. So how did you navigate that? Then, what insights also does this work? Because it seems kind of absent. And what insights does your work or your research offer into the relationship between bureaucracy and citizenship? Because that relationship must actually be there. And also, who are the key bureaucrats you are talking about in this whole process? And how have these then helped to inform the bureaucratic process, maybe from 1962 to 2014, the period which you are actually talking about? Maybe second last, the issue of national registration, citizenship, this bureaucratic process has got its own challenges. And the challenges are actually very many. And you seem not to have taken us through the challenges that, for example, the government of Uganda has faced or is facing in implementing some of these very fundamental policies which can help to deal with issues of national identification, security, It is, and lastly, what is the nexus between, or how has this bureaucratic process contributed to improving the security question? You may draw on works of creative artists like Matthias Walkaga. A very interesting piece, Ali Porter. I don't know whether you have ever listened to that song. Ali Porter. We want the report. And Matthias Walkaga is asking for report from Uganda Police and other security agencies that apparently all people are having SIM cards that are registered. Everything is e-governed. But again, you abduct someone, you even call to ask for ransom. The ransom is given, it focuses on the murder of Susan Magara. In the case of Susan Magara, where even the people who abducted but later killed this person were able to call, but the government was not able to trace of what relevance is this. Chair, I submit.
Please clap for Dr. Zaid for asking a very pertinent question. Thank you very much, Dr. Zaid. Martin, you put a historical period in your work, so you invited a historian to ask you questions, and I think that you should respond to his questions before we have our last panelist coming.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaid. I think that was an error. From 1962 to 2004 was a contextual chapter trying to look at the evolution of citizenship. But ideally from 2014 to 2023, actually 24, I'd not go there so much. I don't know why it wasn't captured, but my scope there is from studying the NERA now, is from 2014 to 2023. Because in 2024, now our IDs get expired. So that's where I had stopped. Then when it comes to expiration, your citizenship remains, but it's on the ID that expires as long as you're already in the system. So the MIDAS, I did not consider that because my focus was much more on NERA, so I did not go into that. And honestly, I cannot do everything at the same time. Maybe that can be considered for a doctor if it happens to be there. Then the question of bias. This is a very, very critical question. Bias, but what I did to maybe to avoid that was to remain focused on what I was looking for, not to go into details of whom I was interviewing or whom I was interacting with. That's how I managed to deal with that. But there are those other, I would call them, I don't know how, for lack of a better word, those kind of feelers that this one is this one is this. So that's how it went. But for more information maybe regarding that and making it a bit detailed and well examined, I will consult you and see what we can do. The relationship now, first of all, we have to understand that these bureaucrats come from the population. That's one. They are also citizens. Only that what designates them is their titles they are given as people to work in those different government agencies. So, because, for example, there are cases where you find someone who is working there is your relative. So still that relationship remains there. However, like in any other sphere of life, some of the things, social relations get compromised and people maybe get what they are not entitled to or what they are entitled to. That's what the little I can say there. But they are all citizens. They are part of us. So, but while doing research, you have to draw maybe the lines that this is working in the capacity of a bureaucrat. This is a citizen seeking for an ID.
Dr. Zaid had two other questions, which I think you haven't responded to sufficiently. The question of the challenges faced, and also in terms of security. The very last question, I think you should amplify that a little bit.
The relevance of this whole system in terms of security.
Yeah.
As it stands now, the claim is that the national ID is very instrumental in security matters. Now, I would say that if I would give the right answer, it would actually have a methodological challenge even to get how come they have failed in some instances. That would actually create a methodological challenge to get that information. But the claim is that it is used for following up on those cases of people who, for security matters. That is, I think, in what I would say, it depends on the interests sometimes of the state. The challenges in the implementation of NIRA, rolling out NIRA, one of them is, for example, as I said, one of them has to relate with the legal. I still insist on those that are excluded. So that is a challenge. Those people, all people are not brought on board, which remains a problematic when it comes to inclusivity of all the people. Then related to the infrastructure, the IT and all that, there is a big problem when it comes to infrastructure in terms of internet. So whereby some people in terms of, like those decentralized district divisions, sometimes they have that challenge when it comes to recording. Then another challenge relates on the idea of biometrics. However, that remains contested because recently I think Dr. Charlotte brought the idea that she has not done a lot of manual work, but then her fingerprints cannot be captured. I think that relates to maybe the technology which could be obsolete, because they say they are using machines that were deployed in 2010. So perhaps there could be a challenge with the issue of obsolete technology. That's what I can say about that.
Okay, thank you, Martin. You can take a seat as we listen to the last panelist, but if you're still strong and feeling good.
I think I am. Let me carry my cross.
Okay, so welcome, Dr. Mpiangu.
Martin,
Yes,
thank you very much for giving us a pleasant day, a very engaging defense. Thank you very much, Chair, my Dean, for the opportunity to participate in this journey with Martin. And first of all, Martin, I would like to celebrate you for choosing to write about NIRA and taking us to issues of the state, governance, citizenship. You do a good job to remind us of some of the things that we are part of. I've already, taken all my children to register. I have been very compliant. So I don't know what definition you give me as a citizen, but that's not really for answering. So I'd like first of all to say that coming from religious studies, I was happy to note that this whole issue of registration comes from, in Uganda, the history is connected to the church, and that the churches were, registering membership. I think that's a good place also for us to notice the continuous interconnectedness of church and issues of citizenry here in our country. So, in your recommendations, you do in your areas of further study, if you just tap it. Yes, you talk about an interdisciplinary analysis of Uganda's national ID and certification systems is essential to understanding the interplay between identity, governance, and other disciplines such as law, politics, history, and technology. I felt like NIRA had already given you an opportunity to engage with technology. And for you delivering a PhD in 2025, giving us a defense in 2025, where NIRA has been having an entire year of working and capturing us and taking our biometrics using technology. If you compared what is happening today and what happened when the churches were registering membership, where you began, you already had an opportunity to engage with the bit of technology. I don't know how much you were able to do that, but I was just thinking that I hope that there is a section that speaks into the technology. Already you have that biopower where you even refer to our own biometrics here at university, at Makerere University, and I think very many other government agencies are even other private agencies are using biometrics to manage to manage their work environment. So I think you should not have been shy to give an in-depth, discussion on the bit of technology, because we have come of age. We have grown from the time when the churches were taking registration, and now in 2025 delivering to us a thesis. It would have been beautiful to see the power of technology playing out already in enabling government to capture the bio of the citizens. I don't want to forget something that I'm very passionate about. Most of the people who know me very closely and personally, they know that I speak several Ugandan languages, about 12. So I would like to ask, did you deal with the question of language in any way? Because I couldn't get it very, like from your findings or from your appendix. While you were discussing with the people, and by the way, I'm interested in knowing whom actually you interviewed, who were these guys, and you don't have to mention names if you don't want to, but I'll be happy to know who exactly, like you talked to, even if, out of the 50, who are those guys, who are those people. But what did they say about language, if at all it was important in what was coming through from the people? So for instance, when they are registering the citizens, and you have this Rutoro speaking citizen, and you who is registering this lady or this citizen, you are speaking maybe English and Ateso. Like, what was there something about language in this issue of NIRA? Does it have any implications for you and for your work? I felt interested. Why? Because our country, it's multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious, and these form us as citizens, and it also affects whether we are, complying or not. So I don't know if you want to make a comment, so I'm not in a monologue.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mpyangu. The question of language, I did not deal with that as such, because the people I talked to are the people I encountered. They knew how to read and write, as we now put it. So they are able to understand the basics. But in cases of such complications, they would request that person to come with a person who would assist in filling the form. And another thing, if that did not happen, then the brokers, the intermediaries, are there doing that work. So there are people, I don't know who brings them or where they come from. They are strategically there. In case an applicant gets a problem with filling the form, they are there to offer a service at, I don't know which fee, at a fee but which I don't know. And another thing may be that...
Okay, Martin,
yeah?
just about, could have been September, there was a viral WhatsApp video that was showing an official from NERA, a lady that spoke, that tried to make an announcement in several languages. So that's where I'm coming from, partly, but also to be interested in this issue that there can be information lost.
Exactly.
Even it could explain some of the issues you're raising, like the population that is left out. You know, when I go to a place where someone speaks or understands my language, I'm much more able to make the process come through. So if I go to a place, the officer in charge only knows Ateso, I'm before him with my Rutoro, the officer is not getting what I'm saying. And what if at that particular moment, the brokers, who by the way you should have investigated, so you know who are these, and you have actually referred to them, but you now can't qualify them, you see? So it's very, very important that you suspect people who are part of important processes that you are actually investigating. So now I think those guys come to fill a gap. Those intermediaries come to fill a very important gap, because just see, if I'm trying to fill a form and I'm speaking rhetoric, and this guy comes in handy, that becomes an important person in my process of complying with a very important instruction regarding my registration. So I wanted you to take note of that thing. For example, what is responsible for those what are the factors responsible for those that you feel are left out? You might find that language is one of them. Secondly, there are also cultural issues. There are people who don't believe in being counted, in being registered, in even being known, you know, for anything. So it could be that you need to find out, why are some people not complying, and who are those? Okay, and there are some people who want to register themselves as adults, but they don't want to register and talk about anything about their children, because they don't want to say maybe they are 4 or 5, because for them they don't believe in counting their children. Okay, so you also, I wanted to join my colleagues who commented on the time frame, the 1962 to 2014. So I don't know, having answered Dr. Zaid, I'm wondering whether it will stick in the title, or whether you'll switch it to 2024 instead of 2014.
Yeah, I will change that.
Okay. Why? Because you say that NERA, and I can tell you, NERA is more pronounced 2024, 2025 than it was in 2014. In 2014, there are people who didn't even give it any attention because we didn't know where it was going, right? Yes. But right now, very many people have an idea what NERA is doing. And so in 2024, you mentioned that there was an additional detail for NERA to register marriages. Yeah. Now, so I got married in 2004, and I did my registration with NERA last year, but I didn't even ask what am I supposed to benefit? What are the marriages? What are they doing to us? Because according to your explanation of governmentality and developmentality, I don't know what are the marrieds supposed to benefit from this registration. We don't even ask. There's a bit of compliance in some, in some quarters. Yeah. But what is this registration supposed to benefit us? What is the registration of children supposed to benefit them? I can try to think about the children because they are young. We have these things of 5 days plus. We have immunization. We have vaccination and all those things. For children, I try to imagine school and all that. But for the marrieds, what do they want from us? Yeah? That would be important and interesting for me. Yes. I don't know whether you have any reflections, but maybe most importantly for me, concerning citizen-centered participatory approach, whereas I like it, but I wanted to hear from you. So whom did you engage with on this citizen-centered participatory approach? Like, what did the people say? Your informants, your reflections, what did they say? How would they want to see themselves participate in such a process as NERA? And I think in that way, we are able to appreciate your effort in trying to propose. Do you feel like they do not participate already, or they would like, they should, participate? How do they want to participate up to this point? Maybe now I know with all my languages, I could have helped NERA, with translation, but I didn't see an advert or something like that. And then, were there people who celebrated visibility, as explained by you, Mr. Buhamizo? Were there people who celebrated visibility as opposed to obscurity? Or were there people who actually saw that it's better not to register? And what were their fears? And I think you do try to mention that some people think they're being surveilled or it's not good, but when you explained what you're looking for, what was your take on visibility vis-a-vis obscurity? Chair, I would like to stop there. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mpianga. Martin, let's get your response.
Thank you, Dr. Mpianga, and thank you, Dean. I'll begin with the last one. Are there people who celebrated visibility? Now, I'll give an example of senior citizens in my research, those 80 years and above. Of course, the fact that the government is giving them something to live on, so those ones need to be visible for that particular. Then for the obscurity, in Uganda, I don't want to go into so much into politics, but in Uganda, there are those who believe in the regime and there are those who do not. There was misconception even when the NERA, the national ID was introduced. Some related it to the President Museveni's tricks to leak the election because he had all the powers to use the national ID. Then there are other people who thought that this was going to create more problems when it comes to their deals, because you have to be, you can be identified. So those who prefer to remain invisible in their own way. So that's what I can say about that. So there are two areas that can be looked into. Those who celebrate, they are benefiting. And those who hide, they have their own reasons. I think I would say deals that they don't want to be exposed to the state. Then you ask something to deal with what is the registration for marriages? How does it? Registration for marriage, it has long been used as an evidentiary proof in courts of law that you are married to so and so for purposes of equal sharing of resources, so you are safe. So marriage certificate in having it from NERA, so that is important. Then for the children, they need to understand one of the reasons that this registration is taking place is to understand their family tree. Family tree in the sense that where are you from, who is your father, who is your grandfather, and all that. So that is important idea because years back, recording of citizens within a centralized system has not been there. So now this one, that is I'm using the argument that was advanced put forward in the field. You talk about the issue of citizen-centered participatory approach. How do they want to participate? So this approach I propose that is very important because, first of all, I think I talked this with Dr. Ferdinand sometime back, is the government aware of the people they are registering? Or this should actually be on the grassroots so that the community itself identifies who is supposed to be registered. So that's why I come up with the idea that maybe for NIRA, for the government to register the, I'm still using the true citizens or proper citizens, there should be a deliberate engagement of the community so that people can be able to identify that this belongs to us, this maybe doesn't. Because ideal citizenship brings the question of insiders and outsiders. Issue of culture issues, people who do not, that one came a bit, but I didn't go further to investigate, because that would also require another investigation to actually see why are they. So, but that has to do with the some actually, it was based on some region that never wanted to their people to be registered. Because but I didn't go, I can honestly tell you, I didn't go far like investigating that. The question of language is creating something serious here, because maybe to give this one, I saw it when I was in a migration office, that is internal affairs. There are those, in every office they have put specific people within the ethnic communities in Uganda. That one is being done to help you in terms of understanding what a passport requires. But for NIRA, it is not yet. Maybe they will think about it, but the question of language is still something to question, whether those people even, I think maybe even errors on national IDs, language question could be contributing to that, because if I got you correct.
Would you think that if you conceptualize very well, it can go into your recommendation? Remember,
Yeah.
needs to go to
Yeah.
people, and you can do a policy statement.
Yeah.
For you and say my work found out or this, so that
Yes.
the work goes through and to make contribute.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Martin, you... Okay, I think I told you that Farouk helps to manage this room. So, thank you very much, Martin. And I think I just want to say something on the question of language. While you have people that speak different languages in the offices at immigration, immigration where passports are issued, and you say that they help people who come to apply for passports, I want to tell you that they also do more than that. When you go there and you say that you are Mgisu, they bring Mgisu to speak to you, to see whether you actually speak the language or not. And Dr. Mpiango has left, but what I wanted to say, so in the case where one person can speak 15 different languages, what does that do? But anyway, so the panelists have all asked their questions, and we now open up for questions from the public, if any. And usually we have 10 minutes for that, but today we shall have 8 minutes because we have another defense that is scheduled to take place in this very room. So our online audience, if anybody has a question, please you raise your hand and then you'll unmute and ask. Farouk, what about the comments? Is there anything in the comments? Oh, it's just the usual congratulations and this, if there are questions. Okay. So I want to take it that either Martin has totally confused us, that we have no questions to ask, or he has been very clear and we are all very satisfied. And so we do not really have any questions for him. I ask the questions of both you. If you have a question here, you put up your hand. And if you're online, you do that. Okay. No, it's everybody. It's 8 minutes for all of us. So we have 3 hands. Okay, so let's begin from that side.
Thank you, Martin, for coming this far.
Thank you, Prof.
Mine is quick and simple. I can be identified using my identity card. I can be identified using my passport. Why did you choose identity card as opposed trying to make a comparison of the two? Because somebody was telling me you can also be identified using a driving permit. But a driving permit can even be given to foreigners. But as a Ugandan, I have my national ID and I have my passport. So what's the science there?
Thank you, Prof.
I have not done.
Take the questions. You will
Another
respond
one.
once.
You say you interrogated 50. Did these 50 include the non-officers in DIRA? For example, going out on the street to ask Nyakana about registration for an identity card in NIRA. Did you interrogate them? And if yes, how many? Vis-a-vis the people in the office. We have had a problem with the use of this word bureaucracy. Yeah. Your understanding of the usage of bureaucracy, from my understanding, is not how the opponent, the critical reader understood it. Supposing you removed it from your title, will your study remain standing? I submit.
Thank you so much, Chair, and congratulations, Martin. My name is Peter. Now, I've listened in on all the questions. So I was asking, imagine I am the Minister of Internal Affairs and we meet in an elevator and we just have a few seconds to reach down. What would you tell me from that study? Thank you.
Thank you very much, our moderator of this session. And Martin, congratulations. Chair, I just want to move a motion of appreciation for the development in the understanding. Martin is an upcoming doctoral scholar. And I've watched him since he started on this journey. I want to note with a lot of appreciation that he himself has understood what he's dealing with deeper and deeper as he went on. I really appreciate this, and I wish you a very safe journey into doctoralness. Not simply a PhD holder, but doctoralness. Bon voyage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kasozi. And I take it that we don't have any question from the online audience. And so at this point, I'm going to ask my colleagues, the members of the panel and the supervisor, to retreat with me to the Dean's office, deliberate, then we'll come back to pronounce ourselves. Oh yeah. Sorry, I need to give Martin time to respond to the questions. I think I'm thinking about time and the next group that's going to kick us out of here. So,
I'm responding to Professor Nyakana's question. A passport is a travel document. An ID is now identified as an identification document as a citizen. So a passport, as of now, you cannot use it as a citizen. So to resolve that, that's why they are now merging your passport with the national ID, NIN. Yeah. So then on the street, apart from bureaucrats in offices, I have interviewed other people, those with IDs and those without IDs, to understand their interpretation, their experience in registration and all that. For Peter Dabienda, doctor, so what would I tell the minister if we interacted right now regarding my study? So this study resonates with the policy. So I would talk about in a short sentence, I would talk about the changes that the NIRA has brought, or the identification system, and what it means to lived citizenship. Yeah, that's what I would share. So from the investigation I've done.
Thank you, Martin. I see that Intona Mildred has raised the arm. Could you please unmute and ask your question? You have 5 seconds. So you either unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
That was my student. So.
We don't hear you. So maybe, Martin, you want to speak to your students.
Hello. Am I being heard now? Hello.
Please ask your question.
I'm asking that I have a concern concerning the people with the disabilities and people who are not able, the visual insights. Did Martin go ahead and try to get a look into how the bureaucracies and how such people can be helped? Because there are circumstances under which at times you find that such people their information is not ably captured very well. They cannot give even the proper information concerning their disabilities. I submit.
Thank you, Mildred. That is one of the challenges currently that NILA is grappling with. So it also comes the question of language and all those issues to deal with. So as of now, people with the disabilities, I wouldn't give a conclusive answer on that. I don't know how they are handling it. But it's one of the challenges that NIRA is facing on how to deal with. For example, people with sign language, how can they get their national IDs, or people who are dumb, or people who with visual impairment. So they have not, maybe to go back and understand how far the developments have gone, but I didn't deal with that. Still, it's a big challenge when it comes to obtaining national ID.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Martin. And colleagues, the panel will now retreat to deliberate. And when we come back, we'll pronounce ourselves. Professor Amanda, we acknowledge your presence. When we come back, we'll give you an opportunity to say hello to us. Martin. So we have progressed. We can proceed. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Farouk. Yes. Good afternoon, all of us, but especially Martin.
Good afternoon, Dr. Dean.
Good afternoon. He said it was a few minutes. He said it was, what did he say? He said, what did you say? That you're almost getting there?
Carrying my cross to Calvary. So,
okay. So I'd like to thank all of you for staying with us for this long, patiently waiting to see whether Martin crosses. I don't know whether he crosses to the promised land or he doesn't, but thank you very much for the support and for being here for Martin up to this point. Martin, you made our job easy by ably demonstrating that this is your work and that you understood your work better than maybe people that had not understood you, and you had to clarify what you set out to do and what you did. So the panel has deliberated and we pronounce ourselves that you've passed. And we sincerely congratulate you and congratulate the supervisors for the job well done. I know it's a PhD journey, it's not an easy journey, hills and valleys, potholes, but you navigate them and finally you're here. So we sincerely congratulate you. I know that you've been a regular attendant of these sessions in this room, and you know that there is always no cloud without a silver lining, so you still have some work to do before you can finally walk the red carpet to shake the chancellor's hand and receive your PhD from Makerere University. And we have the issues that you have to address. I'm not going to read them for everybody, but we have the issues, and you know where we get this from the Registrar Secretariat, together with the critical readers report. So there are critical issues there that you'll need to address, and you'll have up to 3 months. So if you want to graduate in February, then you don't have the 3 months, because our deadline is in December for submission. And you will be working with your supervisors, and Dr. Martin Chamanywa will oversee your revisions. What that means is that after your revisions, when you agree with, when your supervisors sign your compliance report, before you submit the books to the Dean's office for onward submission, you must get a letter from Dr. Chamanywa confirming that you have addressed the comments as raised. So the rest we shall do between you, the Dean's office, and the Registrar's office. But yeah, congratulations again, and I thank your colleagues who have stayed here with you. I know you have members of your family. I want to thank all of them for being here with you. So again, as is tradition in this room, at this point, we give an opportunity to, now not the candidate, but we'll give an opportunity to Martin to say a word or two, and then I will invite your supervisor who is online, Professor Amanda Hammar, to say hello to us. Thank you, Martin, and I'm now handing over to you.
Thank you. So, allow me, thank you, Dean. There is a small song which I want to bring here. It's a religious song. When Jesus says yes. When Jesus says yes. Contextual now. When the dean says yes. So, up and down. You had the one, you remember the other one?
Maybe it's coming next.
Yeah, you hid it. So it is now visible. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's it's Thank you, Farouk. Another one may be something that to say, this is your day, something if you know it. So now, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. That's what I could offer at the moment because learning is a process. So I'm here to appreciate. A PhD is a summation of different factors. So different people come into your life to help you here and there. So for that appreciation, I want to begin with God, who has taken me throughout up to this level. My appreciation also goes to the funders, Danida Fellowship Center, DFC, that sponsored this PhD. I also appreciate the citizens team, Uganda, Ghana, and Denmark, come to choose leadership. You did good leadership up to this time. Development studies as my department. Without choosing leadership, and now I look at many things, the principal, the dean herself, she knows the role she has played in my life throughout this. So the Directorate of Research that admitted me here. So there is also another group that helped me doing research, that is Next Generation Social Sciences in Africa, of which I benefited in doing this research. And my supervisors, Professor Godfrey Asiimwe, today I think I've answered his long time conflict in corridors of Makerere because he started developing a conflict right away in 2012. Why am I not doing a PhD? So today I solve that puzzle and I hope I will, yeah. So Associate Professor Esuruku was very, very valuable in giving very insightful comments that helped me revise my work. Professor Amanda Hammar, I don't regard her as a professor as such. I think she turned into a mother during our mentorship. She did a great job. Doctoral committee, the audience, and there are other people I need to mention their names. For example, Alice Tamsanje, she has done her job very well. An administrative secretary here today with us, that is Virabwa Florence. She has been giving us what to do and what's going on. For the dean, let me leave it at that. She knows what she has done in my life. So allow me and appreciate Isaac in a special way. Isaac Asiimwe he stopped me from calling him doctor. So he has been in one way meeting me and saying, do this, don't, so do that and that. So up to this level. So now in all this, I've been having my partner in academic studies, that is Abasaviona Milka, who recently defended. We have hustled together in DFC hostels, failing when Amanda could call us on one-on-one, then, but would have our slogan, we shall finish. So I hope we are there. So in all of this, someone has been helping me to cope up with my stress. So she has been working as a shock absorber. So I would like to call my family forward here. So others are not here. I'm not a man of few kids, so I have many. So others have not come here. So from the left, that is the second born. The first born is writing her senior 6 exams. So that is the second born senior 4 vacist. The middle one, that is second born, her name is Kemans Prudence of Buhamizo. So third born, OS girl of Buhamizo. She is a P7 vacist. And the problem is now I open tough competition at home, so we have been competing who passes. Yes, yes. So, but now there is green light. So I'd like to thank her in a special way. You know. What I cannot guarantee is actually replacing the time that I have not been home. So, but thank you so much. She has been supportive in when going home and locking the bedroom so they don't enter. So I read. So it has been kind of tough for us. But I'm happy that I'm here today, that I've done this presentation, whether good or not, but that's how it is. So now, in a special way, I would like to thank Professor Nyakana for having agreed to come here. Professor Nyakana employed me in Jinja, where I came from to start this doctoral journey. So, surprising, it was a coincidence. When he was leaving, Jinja I was also leaving. So, I don't know whether, are there still jobs, but they are not there. So, but that's it. I thank everyone, the audience, for having agreed to stay with me up to this time. So, I cannot, words could not express what I feel at heart, but that's it for today. Thank you so much. On my doctoral committees, Professor Ferdinand took it upon himself to call me a son. So, and he mentored me wherever he would find time. So, that he occupies a special position in the doctoral committee. So something positive from him, he said he was impressed by my defense. I don't know. So thank you so much. So everyone, may God keep you long.
Thank you so much for supporting. I'm trying to get Professor Amanda.
Yes, I'm happy. I'm right here. Is there anyone left in the room?
All right. Ooh, good to see you.
Very good to see you. It's been a fantastic morning, a second round after Milka's success last week. And I just want to thank, again, you, Dean Kanakwa, for fantastic steering of these events. Thanks to the examiners, the committee, to Makerere, to Chus for the great partnership again that we've had you know, with the Citizens Project, which Martin has been absolutely crucial for. Thanks, of course, again to Godfrey Asiimwe, who was our, you know, project lead in Uganda, and to my fellow co-supervisor. Sorry, I just want to turn this off. Of Martin's project. And of course, the most important thing is to say an enormous congratulations to Martin. I feel incredibly proud of you, Martin. I mean, I've not known you as long as your other colleagues around and the one who gave you the job at Ginger, but I'm very glad we found you. Sorry, there's somebody bothering me with a phone call. And I want to just acknowledge again that, you know, Martin has been part of a project that we have shared together, the Citizens Project Certifications of Citizenship in Africa. I see a lot of people have left the room, but I'm very glad to have this opportunity to say how important his contribution has been. I think that the kinds of questions that have come from the range of, you know, commentators, examiners, opponents, and so on, has raised a lot of interesting and important questions which will help Martin refine the work. They've been really nice challenges for all of us who are in this project to think through further. But Martin has made an incredibly important contribution. I think he might even have underplayed his contribution. You know, I don't think there's been very much work on identification, this whole change of identification in Uganda. We've got this comparative project we've done in Ghana, and we had these different levels which we wanted different people to contribute with. And Martin was tasked with looking at what we call this intermediate level, the bureaucratization, the effects of this major national identification reforms in Uganda, and looking at this bureaucratic state-citizen relationship, the ways in which such a major reform has altered things both for the state, for different state agencies at different levels, and for citizens, differently positioned citizens. And I think he's really made this an important contribution, not only with the empirical, but also helping us understand, you know, by looking through the lens of identification ecosystems or regimes, how might that help us look more closely at state building, at forms of bureaucratic forms, at state-citizen relations. I think this is a really important contribution, bigger than the empirical, but to understandings of state building, of citizen making. And I really want to appreciate very much his contribution to our project, and I think to scholarship about Uganda, but also about the bigger questions. And the last thing I want to say is that not only did Martin contribute with his scholarship and the incredibly hard work, but as we all know, we all recognize this with Martin, he has an incredible charm, incredible generosity of spirit and humor, and that in itself has been a beautiful and welcome contribution to us as a team. And so I just want to thank all of you, Martin in particular, and all of you for this great relationship that we've had with Makerere through the Citizens Project, and really great appreciation to everyone for the journeys we've been on together. So thank you so much. The sound has gone down, so I don't know if anyone's talking, but
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amanda. It's good to it's good to see us get to this point, and we have
with both Citizens PhDs.
Yeah, thank you very much, and many congratulations. So I would like to bring this to an end now, because we have another defense beginning in a few minutes. All right, bye.
Ciao. Bye, everybody. Thank you.